everybody, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. Welcome to the broadcast. This one, hopefully it's going to go really smooth, but just with all the logistics of everyone working from home, hopefully not, I may need to just cut this really quick in case my wife gets a call for her work. So apologies if that happens, but God willing, hopefully the broadcast will just go smooth sailing straight on through, and I can show you everything that I've wanted to show you tonight. So the title of this video is, when is this whole rebellion going to break forth? And if you follow my channel for the past couple months, you know the rebellion that I'm speaking of. That is this false light rebellion. What we're seeing right now across the world stage in many different facets and forms is that tyranny is blown out of proportion. All these very draconian things are being just extrapolated beyond reason, beyond rationale. And I believe it's purposeful, and it's led by spiritual powers and principalities, that our enemy wants just this horrible, tyrannical, draconian type of New World Order scare tactic to freak out the world so that the world rebels against the current order, destroying the current order out of chaos, and then again bringing in this type of Gnostic New Age, the true beast system, if you will, because our enemy portrays himself as an angel of light and not necessarily as this draconian, tyrannical overlord. I mean, he will be tyrannical to the Christians specifically when that time arises, but to the world, he's going to appear as their savior. He's going to appear as their friend. So that's what we've been talking about here for the past couple months, and a lot of questions that I've been getting from people is, when does all this happen? Specifically, I've spoken about how I believe that this veil is going to come down, this veil of knowledge, something that the enemy is mimicking versus Christ and him tearing down the veil between us and the Father. The enemy is going to break down the veil of ignorance to worldly knowledge, just as he did in the Garden of Adam and Eve and Garden of Eden, where he, brought forth knowledge, sort of like Gnosticism in terms of eating from the tree of knowledge. And I believe it's all going to be centered around this whole child ring stuff, stuff related to the traffic issue. I've shown a lot of evidence in terms of what I'm seeing on the scenes over the past couple months. And again, if you've been with me, you'll see that there's definitely a lot of evidence to suggest that this is a real possibility, and I'm going to give you some more evidence tonight, as well as we're going to speak about the Pope and sort of what may play out with Catholicism over the next couple of days, weeks, and even months. So when does this whole rebellion actually break forth? Well, technically, it already is breaking forth. I mean, technically, we're already seeing it. I don't know if you've seen some of the news that's gone on worldwide, but UK is going into a new national lockdown until December 2nd. Spain, I believe, is going into a national lockdown. France just went into a national lockdown. And what do we see? We see riots, just like in the United States. And we're seeing riots in Africa. I mean, there's riots literally everywhere right now. And the common theme is the pandemic. That's what's really getting everything going. But again, there's bound to be more layers to this as we proceed forth. But when does the big one, if you all will call it that, when is the big one? Because we're all waiting for the big one. We've just sort of been like chugging around here for the past, since March, right? We've just, it's been birth pangs. It's been increasing in terms of severity and frequency, but we're waiting for that big, the dam breaking, everything breaking forth. A lot of people think it's going to be before the election. It may be. There's some very ominous things that Trump is saying in terms of if he loses, it's because of the Supreme Court. And so no one really knows what that means. Is he going to lose the election, but then there's going to be some type of contest in the Supreme Court? So does this whole thing break forth after the November 3rd, 4th election timelines? Is there going to be like a coup type of thing? Who knows, really? Who knows? But we're already in the middle of it. And what I would say is, if if nothing happens on November 3rd, 4th, in terms of a lot of these exposure things that we've been talking about on this channel, it doesn't mean it's gone. It does not mean it's gone, because as I'm going to show you tonight in this broadcast, there is still just continual evidence, strong evidence to suggest that this thing is going to break. We just don't know when. So we just have to be patient, be in prayer, and we will see it when it comes. So anywho, let's go ahead on over to the screen share, and I want to show you a lot of important news that I've gathered over the past couple days. This guy, Archbishop Vigano. You've probably seen a lot of YouTubers talking about his open letter to Donald Trump. He's had a second letter now. The first one was in June. Now another one is here in October. So the first one I covered, LifeSite was all about it. LifeSite is, starting to fellowship with Catholicism and starting to promote all these things, as are a lot of other YouTubers. This is the dangerous thing, is everyone has their sights on tyranny. And so if someone's saying tyrannical stuff and they seem conservative and they seem patriotic, well, then it's like a lot of people just aren't even paying attention to doctrine. It's like, well, hey, you're my friend. And that's what a lot of YouTubers are doing right now. Christian YouTubers are starting to uphold this guy, this Archbishop Vigano, even though he's Catholic, even though it's a different gospel. They're starting to uphold him as a brother in Christ, simply because he's talking about truth, wokeness. He's talking about the New World Order. He's talking about the vaccine, mandatory vaccines, and all these things. Let's go ahead and get into this. But again, it's like people's peripherals are just blown out. It's just everyone's just looking straight ahead. And as long as they're talking about tyranny and all these things, well then, everything else, the blinders are on. So this one from June, this was June 6th. This was when he did this letter to President Trump, and we covered it in a video here. And again, he was talking about how there's this raging battle, a spiritual battle between the children of light and the children of darkness. And he was talking about the NWO. He's talking about all these conspiratorial things, and naturally everyone just wanted to suck that up. Well, he's come back a second time, and he has an hour-long video in addition to a 4-page open letter to Donald Trump. And so we're going to look at some segments of that letter, and we're also going to look at a segment of his video here. So you can look this up. Archbishop Vigano addresses the Catholic Church, I think, regarding this Identity Conference 2020. And particularly, I get this transcript here where he says, "Allow me a brief word about the political situation in the U.S. on the eve of the presidential election. Fratelli Tutti," which this is the encyclical by Pope Francis, his encyclical on brotherly fraternity and societal, I forget what the title it is, but it's one of his encyclicals. And he says that this encyclical from Pope Francis seems to be a form of Vatican endorsement of the Democratic candidate, in clear opposition to Donald Trump, and came a few days after Francis refused to grant an audience to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Rome. This confirms which side the children of light are on and who the children of darkness are. So, very, very interesting. The reason why I got this particular transcript is I've spoken about how we probably shouldn't be fully dogmatic about eschatology and the pinpoint accuracy of exactly what's going to happen in the end times, as it concerns who's Mystery Babylon, as it concerns all variety of things, because things may turn on a dime quickly. And one of those things which I was maybe originally dogmatic on a couple years ago, and now I'm relenting a little bit and I'm trying to be very discerning, is the role of the Catholic Church. We see things like the Catholic Church being built up, particularly by Donald Trump. He's promoting Catholicism. They were singing Ave Maria at one of his rallies. I mean, we've covered a lot of that on this show. It seems like Catholicism is being pumped up. The Supreme Court now has a majority of Catholics. There's just tons and tons of things showing that, the Catholics definitively have some type of role in eschatology. And if you look at the reformers, they believe that the Vatican and the Pope was Antichrist and so on and so forth. I mean, they probably do have a role here. However, as we talk about these traffic things concerning the children, we see that the Vatican is sort of also being destroyed. And there's been a lot of exposure in terms of abuse. But I would argue that if there is this major exposure of these rings, and it does implicate religion, government, politic figures, as well as entertainment figures, the Vatican could be implicated not just in abuse cases, isolated abuse cases, but organized traffic, which would be devastating to it, and it could destroy it. And as I mentioned to you in a prior video, I was trying to balance those things out. It very much seems like Pope Francis is some type of ringleader. I used to call him the false prophet. Now I'm not so sure. Other people believe he's the false prophet of the end times. And by all means, he definitely has a very broad support amongst government leaders as well as religious leaders. Everyone sort of sees him as a type of moral authority. And so in that regard, it seems like Catholicism really wouldn't be destroyed. But then you have these things. You have almost a civil war happening in the Catholic Church itself. And it sort of clicked for me, and I'm going to show you another example of this. It doesn't have to be that the entire Catholic faith is destroyed versus Catholicism takes the head seat at the table in terms of eschatological end times false prophet scenarios. It could actually be in the middle. What we're seeing in Catholicism is actually sort of like a schism, where you're starting to see Catholicism split in two. And I think that's what we may see, is that these things, the traffic, so to say, regarding the children, this may happen in the Vatican, and it may destroy certain aspects of it, but I think it'll lead to a schism to where other segments of Catholicism get power, like those that Donald Trump is supporting. Again, it'll be a little bit more clear as I start to show you some of these articles. So again, Vigano is very much against Francis, as are many other people in the Vatican. There are articles about how there's almost like a civil war, a type of schism brewing within the Catholic Church, conservatives versus the liberals and Pope Francis and things like that. But before we get into all that, let's just take a look at the letter. So this was just a transcript from Vigano's YouTube update. And so here's some of the things about his letter. He said, as I said when I wrote my letter to you in June, this historical moment sees the forces of evil aligned in a battle without quarter against the forces of good, forces of evil that appear powerful and organized as they oppose the children of light, who are disoriented and disorganized, abandoned by their temporal and spiritual leaders. A global plan called the Great Reset is underway. So again, now he's feeding into this whole New World Order conspiratorial thing. Its architect is the global elite that wants to subdue all of humanity, imposing coercive measures with which to drastically limit individual freedoms and those of entire populations. In several nations, this plan has already been approved and financed. In others, it is still in an early stage. Behind the world leaders who are the accomplices and executors of this infernal project, there are unscrupulous characters who finance the World Economic Forum and Event 201 promoting their agenda. So again, now you're getting into the whole Bill Gates, the whole COVID thing was planned. He's pandering to all these things, and it's tickling ears. You'll see this whole Great Reset, which we've been talking about. It's not just a new age subliminal term. I mean, this is on Time Magazine. They're talking about the Great Reset. If you watched my session with John Haller and Tony from A Minute to Midnight, this is one of the questions that I posed to Tony. We do see an order out of chaos, or an order out of chaos type of event happening. And if you think it's the elite NWO that's going to have this order out of chaos and it's going to be a great reset, that may happen. I'm of the opinion it's going to be the opposite, but you have a great reset in terms of the NWO elite. But then you got these people like Donald Trump, Vigano, a lot of New Agers. They also want a great reset. It's like both factions of evil want a great reset. And so whichever way it goes, it's resetting. I mean, there's no question about that. It's resetting. And it just, which way is it going to go? I honestly think with everything that I've seen right now that there's going to be a battle vying for positions of power between two evil groups of people. And I do believe that those who are true Luciferianists, those that want to enlighten humanity, that want to take away from the 1%ers and give everything, so to say, back to the people, I do think prophetically it seems like they will prevail. But again, either way, it's amounting to a great reset. The price of these concessions from the IMF will be the renunciation of private property and adherence to a program of vaccination against the virus promoted by Bill Gates, so there you go again, with the collaboration of the main pharmaceutical groups. Beyond the enormous economic interests that motivate the promoters of the Great Reset, the imposition of the vaccination will be accompanied by the requirement of a health passport and digital ID, with the consequent contact tracing of the population of the entire world. And those who do not accept those measures will be confined in detention camps and placed under house arrest. So all these things, we see this to a degree, right? We see some news about the digital ID and health passport. We see the detention camps in various parts of the world. I think New Zealand or Australia was also talking about that if you refuse testing, you could get thrown into those. But again, those new to this channel and haven't really seen a whole lot of my prior videos, they'll say, yeah, this is all truth. But if you've been watching, you'll see that this is almost, they're just capitalizing on these things to make it look like this is the beast system. And again, I think this supposed beast system is going to get toppled because the whole world is going to revolt in rebellion. As I opened up this broadcast, the world is already in rebellion. The world is already revolting. We see rebellion across America. We see rebellion in France. We see rebellion in Spain. We see rebellion in South Africa. I mean, everyone is rebelling. No one is really going to put up with this. And when these elites are exposed, when their plans are toppled, it is going to sync harmoniously with all these people saying that revival is coming. It is going to appear as though a revival has come and God has sort of granted us a reprieve. Again, if you're new to the program, you might not understand that, but those who have been following along for the past couple months, you'll have at least seen a lot of evidence to support that claim. Until a few months ago, it was easy to smear conspiracy theorists, those who denounce these terrible plans, which we now see being carried out down to the smallest detail. No one, up until last February, would have ever thought that in all of our cities, citizens would be arrested simply for wanting to walk down the street, to breathe, to want to keep their businesses open, to want to go to church on Sunday. As is now clear, the one who occupies the chair of Peter, that's Pope Francis, has betrayed his role from the very beginning in order to defend and promote the globalist ideology supporting the agenda of the deep church. So not deep state. Now there's a deep church who chose him from its ranks. So you see it looks like there's going to be a breaking apart of the Catholic Church. And I want to use this Franklin Graham example so that people don't get sucked into this. Vigano is tickling ears, talking about all these truth matters. People that really don't know that Catholicism is a false gospel are immediately attracted to it. They may know that Catholicism's not that good, right? They may know on the periphery some things that aren't good, but because this man speaks this quote unquote worldly truth about all the dilemma that we're facing in terms of this pandemic, and it seems like he's against the corruptness of the Catholic Church, well then I think he's standing on truth. Because it seems like he's opposing the evil of the Catholic Church, well then he's our friend. Let's look at Franklin Graham, because he has done a very similar thing. And I just want to show you, it's leaven. It is not truth. Okay? Pope Francis made those statements about how civil union of LGBT was acceptable. And that's, again, what relates to Archbishop Vigano's comments. Franklin Graham spoke out against the Pope. As Pope Francis normalizes this, Franklin Graham speaks out. So, okay, what is the natural reaction of us? Yes, right? It's Franklin Graham, godly man, standing up for the faith, right? It seems like he's opposed to Catholicism, but in reality, he's only opposed to a certain aspect of moralism, because him and his father have very much supported the Catholic Church at large. So here is a post from several years ago. This may have been back in 2016. Don't quote me on that. That may be incorrect. Tim Kaine is hoping that the Catholic Church will turn its back on God's word and accept the sinful political whims of our culture. He says he has evolved in his beliefs about same-sex marriage and homosexuality. Well, his thinking nor society's deteriorating moral attitudes change the truth of God's holy word. It never changes or evolves. Romans 1 is a picture of where we are today. Take a couple of minutes to read these verses. Now, this is key. I appreciate the Catholic Church remaining very strong on moral issues through the years, and I pray they will be immovable on the teachings of the Bible. So it's a little strange, because you look at this in silo, and it's like, yes, Franklin Graham is speaking out against evil Pope Francis and all his New World Order agendas. He is for us. Yet, he is also for the Catholic Church. And the reality is that he's just for certain aspects of moralism. The fact that he says that he congratulates the Catholic Church on being immovable on the teachings of the Bible means that he is supportive of their false gospel. So he's perfectly fine with promoting Catholicism as long as it adheres to conservative principles. And that's what's going on here with this whole Archbishop Vigano and everything like that. Is it seems like a schism is going to happen. It seems like, again, if this whole trafficking thing hits the Vatican and it tears it apart, it's not that the whole thing is going to be destroyed. It's that there's going to be a schism, and then there's going to be a segment of Catholicism that flourishes and a segment that dies off. Again, it's an interesting and complicated matter, but I do believe absolutely that Catholicism has some type of role in the end times. As I said in my video, the harlot, or the beast, the bride, and the harlot, I don't think it's going to be a Catholicism theocracy or an Islam theocracy or a Judaism theocracy that goes across the whole world. I think it's going to be an amalgamation of like all types of world religions, all under the banner of Gnosticism or New Age Enlightenment. Those things have yet to be seen, but again, they're not going anywhere, but it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Here's some of the articles just to prove some of these points. This was April 2018. Will Pope Francis cause a schism in the Catholic Church? This has been going on for some time. Pope may support these same-sex unions, but that doesn't mean the Vatican does. Again, there's a rift between them. Catholic leaders condemn Pope Francis's endorsement of same-sex unions. So why do I bring all this up specifically? I've been very vocal about not being fully dogmatic about eschatological beliefs regarding these end times. one of the things I was dogmatic about, and I know a lot of people are dogmatic about, is that Pope Francis is the last pope, the false prophet. Some people believe he's the Antichrist, so on and so forth. There is a possibility that he gets taken down. Again, as I talked about this whole exposure with trafficking, and its span across entertainment, religion, and politics, if that happens, it really seems as though there's going to be a huge rift across the world. There's going to be a loss of faith and hope in religious institution, especially if it involves him. And if you were so dogmatic about him being the false prophet, or he, and something happens to where he gets taken down, it's going to make your mind spin in terms of like, whoa, what has happened? And so I just want to show you these things, that it's a possibility because the Catholic Church is aligning against him. Many conservative Catholics are aligning against him. He's still sort of perceived by the world as a main type of moral figure. But these articles are sort of pointing towards something else potentially happening. And I want to relate this back to an older video I did. This is going to be pretty interesting. Let me just switch on over here so I can pull it up on the screen. Yeah, I need to move this over. Apologies for this. There we go. Okay, now we're ready. For those of you that have stuck with me for years, this was May 25th, 2017. This was when Donald Trump first met the Pope. And I will add, it's not in the YouTube description right now, but I will add a link so that you can go check this out. But very, very interesting thing happened. When they met, they hated each other. You could just see it all over their faces. They hated each other. But one of the things I noticed when they met was that Donald Trump gave the Pope a very interesting gift. And I would have not known the significance of this gift unless I believe this was a sign from God. I'm a prepper. I'm into wild edibles and all these things. And so I demonstrated in this video that literally the day before I saw this visitation by Donald Trump and Pope Francis, I was reading this Nature's Garden Edible Wild Plants. And it just so happened on the very first page is the American lotus. And it talks about how, the American lotus is a wild edible. And I was just learning about that. And it just so happens that the gift that Donald Trump had given Pope Francis was the exact same lotus that I was studying in my Prepper Wild Edible book the day before. Very interesting. Again, I would have not really recognized the flower as a lotus if I had not really been reading that book. And it also says rising above lotus. If you actually, and I think I may mention it in this video, the lotus was very powerful for the Egyptians. Every single portion of the lotus flower was symbolic. Specifically, the portion above the leaf petal, it symbolizes a call to enlightenment, that it's coming out from the abyss and it blooms into this beautiful flower. If you look up the lotus, it is a very prominent figure in terms of New Age circles, Gnostic circles. It's all about enlightenment. That is the key thing. So rising above, right? We see the rebellion and the rising up. And so this is so very interesting that here you see, here's his gift to Pope Francis. And I made reference here in this video that we're going to go back to iPet Goat, and disclaimer here, we do not derive our theology from iPet Goat, this animation that was very much inspired by the Antichrist. Okay, our enemy is the father of lies, and he can certainly put all sorts of lies in here so we can be chasing our tails over and over and over again. However, our enemy is also a very boastful and prideful entity, and I believe this iPet Goat video was him boasting in his own plan. And so we can glean certain things from it so long as it's sort of lining up with world events. So in this particular aspect of iPet Goat, there is this portion where this apple has an intertwining DNA, and it opens up into a lotus flower. And President Obama starts sweating. And I can't help but think about everything that's going on right now. That not just President Obama, because if you look at Trump and the whole trafficking thing and how he's got tapes and all that, he's going after Obama as well. I really wonder if this whole lotus flower rising up into enlightenment and him hating the Pope and the Pope hating him and him giving this lotus flower gift, not that he knows this is what's happening, but sort of understanding the spiritual. I really wonder if it's sort of a boastful move to say that, like, enlightenment has come. Your segment is up. Perhaps that is the meaning of that portion of I Pet Goat where Obama sort of recognizes that he has been used, much like we see in Hollywood, right? When the enemy uses people, it's like, you're used for my purpose, and dust my hands off, and then people go all crazy, MK Ultra, shaving their heads, all sorts of stuff. It's really no difference in politics. I really wonder if the Pope and Obama and Biden, all this, it's like, this is the changing of the guard. This is the time of awakening. This is the time of enlightenment. This is the time of rising up. And this is your time to go away. Just very interesting. Again, as I highlighted all these things about schisms and the Catholic Church going against the Pope, it sort of almost parallels that animation where Obama was sweating and seeing this lotus flower rising up. And so that was also the same gift given to Pope Francis. Interesting. All right. So that's all I got on the Catholics and Pope Francis and everything going on there. So main message there is just, be aware of everything that's going on. So unfortunately, it's time for me to cut off, but I'll leave you with this. There are some major things going on with this whole trafficking thing. Apologies I have to cut this off, but we'll cover that in a live stream, I believe, tomorrow morning, if I can. So until then, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. God bless.